This is the Andy Social Podcast. My name is Andy Dowling, and here we are again, folks. Another week of podcasting, another opportunity for me to give you guys the gift of a brand new, exciting, fantastic podcast episode, if I do say so myself. Yes, I'm very generous and humble and modest and all those great qualities. And I'm sure that you guys have been impatiently waiting to hear my voice again, traveling through the device that you're listening to and penetrating the holes in your ears and getting right in there and caressing and massaging your eardrums. And maybe I should just leave it at that, because that was a far better idea in my head until I started verbalizing it. It was like watching a car crash happen right before my eyes. So don't do that again, Andy. Bad Andy. Far out. Moving along, speaking of voices, actually, this is a really good segue. You'll like this one. Have you ever thought about making money from your voice? Now, if you just listen to that, you'll know that I haven't quite got there yet myself. However, this week's guest does a very, very good job of doing so. This week, I have Neil Wilcock on the podcast. Now, Neil is best known by his nickname Wilko, and Wilko is the brand new co-host on Canberra's Mix 106.3 FM's breakfast show. I think I got that all right. I was spitting that out a couple of times previously. And Wilko's only been on the job for a couple of weeks. So I was recently in Canberra and stopped by the radio station, and we had a bit of a chinwag for an hour or so. And we spoke about how he's adjusting to Canberra life, how the new job's going, some of his observations in the few weeks that he's been there so far. But we also go back in time and get an understanding of some of his earlier beginnings and how he got into radio. And I tell you what, it's pretty fascinating to be getting started in radio when he was 14, and his first proper job going out to Alice Springs on his own at 17 years of age, and running the radio station out there, which was, I think, Sun FM, and then progressing from there, working for Triple M in Adelaide, CFM on the Central Coast, I believe, and then there was Star FM, and all these other radio stations that he's worked for. I probably just named them all there anyway. But on top of that, he's also very well known for his voice work. So Wilko does voice work for the Disney Channel. He's done stuff for Foxtel in the past, but he's probably best known for being the network voice of Channel 10. So if you think about some of those major shows that have been on over the years, this is for people in Australia. If you're listening from overseas, you'll have no freaking idea what I'm on about. But he's done a lot of the voice work for The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, MasterChef, Offspring, Survivor Australia, and there's a whole bunch of other things as well. So you'll recognize Wilko's voice if you haven't heard him on radio before, but if you've been watching TV, you'll no doubt recognize the voice. Anyway, clearly I'm not in the industry of doing voice work. So enough of this. Let's dive into it. This is a great chat with Wilko. I'm going to put all the links to everything we talk about in the show notes over at andysocial.net, including contact info for Wilko as well if you want to reach out and say hi. And just enjoy this episode. So here we are, me and Wilko chatting in Canberra. Enjoy.
Hello, and welcome to the Andy Social Podcast. I'm Andy, and for anyone new to the show, welcome. So glad to have you. Is that what you normally say?
Yeah.
Hello, mate.
How you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for having me in your fantastic little studio, which will be, as you said, soon upgrading.
Yeah.
Relocating.
In our spare studio here at Mix 106.3 in Canberra. Yeah. There is a lot of upgrades going on, which is good. It's not bad. It's all right as it is. But when you look at some of the really fancy new studios in Sydney and Melbourne and even Newcastle got like a $16 million upgrade. Yeah. I was like,
that's got to burn a bit if Newcastle's ahead of the game.
They're right on the harbour and everything. I've got a mate up there who sends me photos. He does breakfast radio and I get real mad at him every morning. Beautiful sunrises. Although we do get to look out on the sheep. I know we're in a box here with no windows, but in the main studio, we do get to look out on a bit of a paddock with some sheep.
Yeah, that's okay. Close to nature.
Yeah, that's it. You know, we're real here in Canberra. We're down to earth. We don't need water views.
That's exactly right. How long have you been in the job now?
I've been here for a month, but I've been in the job for 2 weeks.
Ooh, you're still fresh meat.
Still fresh.
And how's that going for you?
Well, they haven't broken me yet.
Yeah.
It's been great, actually. Canberra's a very surprising place.
Yeah.
And I say this a lot, and I think Canberrans are getting sick of me saying it, but Canberra isn't what you think it is. I think a lot of people, including myself, had this misconception that Canberra is full of boring old white dudes. And it's really not. And it's not all public servants. And there are people here who have grown up their entire lives who just love it. And it's got this weird kind of, it's a bit city, but it's a lot country, and it's got everything that the big cities have got, but it's just a lot more relaxed, which I thoroughly enjoy coming from Sydney.
Yeah. And have you only just realised that since physically moving here, or did you have a bit of an inkling before you took up the job, I guess?
I came down a few times to check before I said
You
yes
had to
to the
convince
job.
yourself.
Yeah, mates and I did a road trip. We come down, we went to the footy, and which I had no care for, but I just wanted to get out and see things. And it was great. You know, the bars are great, the food is great, and the people are really nice. So it's a weird place, so it's hard for me to explain to anybody who's never been to Canberra before, unless you've been here like on a Year 6 excursion to Questacon. But it's really wonderful. I know it sounds like I'm just doing a Tourism Canberra ad, but it's a really great place. I thoroughly love it.
This podcast is sponsored by...
I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't sell it so hard.
Well, I've been coming here for years, playing gigs and out at Belconnen and a couple of other places in the outer suburbs, and I always get confused when I come here because there's a million roundabouts and everything's flat and everything more or less looks the same.
And there's also like the lanes are split up by big sort of parks in the middle, you know, like all the lanes. So there's dual lanes, but they're split up on either side.
Yeah.
You get a lot of people going down the wrong side of the road a lot because they get confused because they're like, that can't be the other side of the road. That's all the way on the next suburb. It is very confusing.
And I've always seen it as I think maybe because for whatever reason, we always book shows in the middle of winter. I don't know where the logic was in that, but it just always happened.
Andy.
No, there's none. And so I've always seen it as a really bleak and stale place.
Oh, it is. In winter, it is just cold. I think a couple of weekends ago, it was minus 8.7, the coldest weekend since 1971.
Really?
Yeah.
There you go. You got the facts as well, being in radio.
I do, mate. Well, I know all this shit.
But it was actually coming in today. They've got the new light rail that they're building.
Yes.
And they seem to be knocking down a few of those eyesores along the main strip.
Yeah, a lot of the older buildings, you know, those 80s style where we went with that speckled concrete look.
Yeah.
Where we just went, speckled
durable,
concrete.
long lasting.
Yeah, who's got to think this is attractive in 30 years? A lot of those are going or at least getting facelifts.
Yeah.
So, and the light rail, which blows your mind, was when the city was planned, the light rail was planned to go in then.
Oh, right.
Like the city was completely planned. So that's why all those sort of big, wide roads that have been split up by these big parks, that was all planned for light rail to go in when there was enough people to support it.
Interesting.
So Canberra is a super planned city.
There you go. Just you wouldn't see it, or you wouldn't be convinced until it actually starts to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
People are going, it's a plan all along.
We knew what we were doing.
We planned this from the start. Right, mate, sure.
So quick tangent or segue. So with radio and being here and for only a couple of weeks in the job, this is not your first job in radio.
No.
You've been doing it for a few years.
Just a couple.
But you're still pretty young.
Yeah, I'm 31. I don't know how young that is. How old are you, Andy?
33.
Okay, so we're pretty old now.
We're getting on.
It's funny because I started radio, I started community radio when I was 14, and then I started commercial radio sort of on the bridge of 16, 17. So, yeah, it's been a while.
How did you even start community radio at 14? Who did you convince?
It was through the school, actually. My English teacher, because all of my report cards said, really nice kid, just talks too much, doesn't focus. If you put as much effort into talking to his friends as he did his studies, he'd actually be quite good at something.
Yeah.
And they had this sort of program through the school that I was at to sort of let some of us go and help out at the community radio station, which was a youth radio station called CHY in Coffs Harbour. And I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And I went there and I just loved it. And I think from the moment, because I'd listened to radio my whole childhood and I'd always enter competitions and I'd sit in bed at night and listen to it late at night.
Yep.
And I always sort of knew that this is a wonderful thing. I just never thought of it as a career.
Yeah, sure.
And when I got to this community radio station, I thought, this is it. This is what I'm going to do.
It's a bit of a reality check. You can see the future unfolding in front of you.
When we used to play things off reel to reel and CD, and we had like one computer in the studio, but it just played the ads. It was super dodgy.
And what sort of programs were you running in the community station? Was it a variety thing, or was it just?
I did the Friday night shift with two of my friends called Lockie and Claire. And at that stage, I didn't have the radio name that is Wilko, which is based off my last name, Wilcock. Yep. So I just went under Neil because that's such a great radio name. So it was Neil, Lockie and Claire. And we did a show called the Friday Wind-Up.
Right, okay.
And it was Friday nights from 7 until midnight.
Okay.
So it was a big shift.
Yeah, big shift.
And it was loose. It was loose. Yeah. And we all had these voices where we thought we had to talk like this. And it was just terrible. It was really bad. But all of our grade listened. And you know, on the Friday night, we'd do it. And then on the Monday morning, everyone would go, I heard your show. Heard what you talked about.
Some good cred.
Yeah. I actually got suspended for 2 weeks for something that I said about the school on the radio station.
Perfect.
I got suspended. I said some stuff. And I did a bit of a skit about one of the teachers.
Yep.
And I can't even remember what it was. And I got pulled in the principal's office and got suspended for 2 weeks.
Oh, I'm envious of that, because when I was in high school, especially in the last couple of years of high school, I was just completely rebellious. I almost got kicked out, bad exit scores.
Really?
Just hated being told what to do. It was the whole authority thing, and a typical teenager just wanting to rebel against anything.
Yeah.
But this was around the time where GeoCities and Tripod and all those web hosts, you could build your own website. So I learned how to code basic websites. I made a website that was basically a profile of our entire class or entire year level, and I would interview friends and I'd give them 20 questions, but they were really inappropriate questions. And then I used to go around with, because we didn't have digital, this is just before digital cameras started to become affordable. So I had a disposable camera, and I used to take photos, like sort of voyeuristic paparazzi style photos of people around the school, get them developed, scan them and put them onto the computer, onto the website.
Yeah.
And I would create these stories about teachers, about people we didn't like in school. And I got pulled in so many times. I got suspended a couple of times for this website. We had these campaigns where we used to get white name cards, and we'd write offensive words on them and then put them in front of people and take photos, so then they would go on the website. And then we had a guest book on there instead of like a forum.
Yep.
Forum was a bit too technical.
Yeah.
But we had a guest book, so the entire grade was on this guest book, and everyone would just fight amongst each other on there just because we were attacking people, and it was amazing. So that
sounds awesome.
It was pretty cool. And it was probably about 10 years later that I had friends of mine reach out to me through Facebook and saying, oh, hey, I just searched for my name and I can still see this website up. Any chance you could just just take this website down? Because if my employer or potential employer is looking for anything, they're going to see how I love big dicks or someone's grandma or whatever. So I thought, okay, it's time to. But I did save the entire website. It's sitting somewhere on a CD or whatever. So
you've got it.
Yeah, I've got it. It's a time capsule.
Yeah,
but if I had
or blackmail material for later on.
That's right. Absolutely. But if I had an opportunity to do some community radio or something like that,
it would have been brutal. Like
it would have been,
bloody. Which a lot of it was. You know, you say things because you have no filter when you're at that age, and you just say whatever comes to your mind. And I do a lot of that now on the breakfast show, but at least I'm a grown up and I know where the line is. And if I'm going to cartwheel over it, I know that I've got some meetings to have at 9:30 about what I've done.
You know what the consequences are going to be.
Yeah. So, but at that age, no, I had no idea.
Have you ever had, over the years of doing radio, and we'll get to a couple of the other locations because there's some odd ones.
Some winners.
Some winners. But has there ever been a time or particular instances where you've said something on radio and then somebody's called in after the fact you've stirred something up?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
I think mainly my role in a show, and to say my role, there's never really, like, you don't sit, like early in radio, you'd sit down and a program director or a network consultant would go, okay, cool, so let's get the whiteboard out, guys, and we're going to write down, and, you know, like with one of my co-hosts, Mandy, who you know, who I did a podcast with, when we first started, they were like, okay, cool, this column's Mandy, this column's Wilko, and we're going to write all the things down about each of you, and then we're going to find out what your roles are on the show, and that's what radio used to be like, and thank God it stopped being like that, because it was too sort of manufactured distraction and not real. And I think that's when radio started to die because people called bullshit on it.
Yeah, of course.
And now it's coming back because it's more real people, real conversations, real voices. What was the question again? I got confused.
No, has there ever been instances where you said something and it's resulted in a backlash? Or,
all the time.
Yeah.
I can't remember anything specific. Oh, yes, I can. That's a lie. And I can send you this audio. I've got it. There was this one time I had this battle when I was working on the Central Coast. I had this battle with one of the suburbs, and it was a bit of a shonky suburb, and it was called Camwell, and I used to rip on it all the time. And from memory, it was our first break of the morning. It was really early, and Mandy, my co-host, had said a number of things, and she gave out the phone number, and I said, well, basically we're calling them we're asking them to call for anything this morning. And I said, if you've got teeth and a face, give us a call. And Mandy says, even if you don't have teeth, you can still give us a call. And I said, no, we don't want to hear from people from Camwell. Oh, that was a big meeting after the show. But it's funny, from that came this weird kind of love-hate thing that I had with Camwell for my 2 years at Star after that.
That probably helps, doesn't it? Because it's a little bit of I'm just trying to think of a good word for it. It's not branding, but it's something about your persona that you've created through that show.
Just saying who you are, like taking the piss.
Yeah.
And I think I'm lucky to get away with it because hopefully it comes across that it's never meant with any malice.
Yeah.
I don't ever mean harm.
Yeah.
I'm just here to have fun.
Yeah.
And hopefully if you're listening to the show, you class me as a mate and this is how you speak to your mates.
Yeah.
You take the piss.
Yeah.
And I love when callers call me up and either call me out on my bullshit or just rip into me.
Yeah.
I'm a sicko. I've got some weird thing when my friends rip into me, I thoroughly enjoy it. And that's what I really, really wanted to do with all of my shows. But it took a long time for me to figure out the difference between, what kind of radio show I wanted to do versus what the network and program directors, what kind of show they wanted you to do.
Do you think that podcasting's still not terribly popular in Australia at the moment, but do you think of formats like that have resulted in radio having to change its approach?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because radio figured out that people wanted to listen to genuine conversations.
Yeah.
And they've found the monetary value in podcasts as well. Like we have a podcast, which is just our best bits of our show.
Yep.
Before I got back into radio, I had a podcast for a couple of years with Mandy. And it's a real responsibility and a privilege to be in someone's ears, to tell a story and know that it's just going directly into someone's head.
That's right. There's no filter.
No.
Yeah.
So why bullshit them? Why sit there and make a fake story to get a laugh or just I know it's smoke and mirrors all of the time, and there is still stuff in radio that we do where I'm like, oh God, this is just, they're not going to buy this shit. There is less and less of that. I would say 95% of it is certainly real in our show. But radio is still theatre of the mind. So there's a lot of stuff that, when we joke, we do a segment called, a celebrity trash bag where supposedly my co-host Kristen has gone around and to a celebrity's house and gone through their rubbish. So we have a bag in the studio which she goes through, which is just for a bit of sound effects, bit of live Foley. But I really feel like radio had to fix its bullshit meter and just go, all right, what's real? Let's find some genuine people who have a good connection and have some real conversations about what's going on.
You got to find that balance between the two because it's still going to be entertaining.
Yes.
And it's still somewhat of a performance involved in it. As you said, it's there's some theatre behind it, but you've got to have that genuine, no bullshit aspect to it as well because people see right through it.
Yeah, exactly.
More so than ever before. In the past, people were so easily convinced. But now you've got the internet, even reality TV is not reality TV anymore. So people have noticed that that's BS.
Yeah.
And now they have to try and make decisions as to what they want to watch. And you've got this smorgasbord of options now. You're not just 4 channels on TV and 2 radio stations.
That's
you can just pick and choose whatever the hell you want.
You can listen to radio from the United States, the UK, anywhere in the world. Even in Australia, you've got the radio app, which means if you don't like the radio stations that you've got in your town, you just listen to something else.
Something else, that's right.
So you've got to fight for your audience. Localism is big, especially here in Canberra, but if you're not funny, engaging and real, then fuck off.
Do you know if you get many sort of out of town listeners?
Yeah, I've only been here a couple of weeks, but I've had a lot of messages on Facebook. I had a message even before I started from a listener, which creeped me out a little bit, just from an article in the Canberra Weekly that went out, or the Canberra Times as well. Yeah, look, we get lots of messages from people. You'd know too, people who'd listen to your podcast are from, you'd look at your downloads and you'd go, oh, Germany. That's weird.
I have a lot of weird ones. I've had a spike in Japan.
Oh, wonderful.
Like a massive spike. And I don't know.
Wow.
We've played over there quite a bit over the years, but I don't know what's happened. I did fix up my CEO.
Right.
So I don't know whether that's helping, but for whatever reason, over the last couple of months, Japan's just gone poof.
Boom. You are booming in Japan.
So there you go. Konnichiwa.
Hopefully I get some Japanese fans now.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, we do get messages. I get a lot of messages from the UK.
Yeah.
UK like to listen to Australian radio.
Yep, cool.
I think it's because it's very different. And in the UK, they love radio. So you've got people who are legitimately obsessed with it. I have a lot of other people in radio who listen to our show and send messages. We had a guy who sent an email to our general manager. I don't even know how he got the contact, but he forwarded it on to me saying, hey, I listened to Kristen and Wilko. Can you tell Wilko that I'm really happy that he's there? And can you send me some free lanyards? Okay. Sure, mate.
There's a bit of an agenda there.
Yeah, exactly. He was really nice, but he wanted those lanyards bad. So we sent them to him.
Oh, good on him. Good on him. Doesn't hurt to ask.
No,
well, sometimes it does hurt, but
it does. If you're asking for anything more than a lanyard or a sticker, then we can't help you. Radio's not as rich as you think.
So, community radio in Coffs Harbour.
Yep.
And then what was the next step after that for radio? Was Adelaide?
No, it was Alice Springs.
Oh, so okay.
Alice was the first one.
All right. How did you get from the coast of the eastern coast of Australia into the dead centre?
Well, I was doing some casual work in Sydney because Mum moved to Sydney, so I went with her. And I was there for only a short time doing like weird sort of reception jobs and anything that I could sort of con my way into without any kind of formal accreditation.
Yep.
And I didn't have any radio training, but I had a microphone. I had a little software, which is kind of like Adobe Audition now, but it was called Cool Edit.
Yeah, I had that. Yep.
I fucking loved Cool Edit.
Yep.
It was just my life.
Yep.
And me and my multi-track, we made some truly terrible fake radio programs.
Did you have the free version of Cool Edit as well?
No, I had a hacked version that was. This is illegal. I had a version from the community radio station that I worked at. I made a copy, got the license, and that was when it was easy to copy a program.
That's right. Yeah.
They didn't know that you were using their program because the internet wasn't connected or anything like that. So, and I had this really shitty microphone, which was from something like a JB Hi-Fi or a Kmart.
Probably like Tandy or something like that, yeah.
Could have been. I think it might have been Tandy or Dick Smith. It was really terrible. And I recorded demos. I got 32 rejection letters from radio stations before, and I've got them all, before I got offered the job in Alice Springs.
And were you pitching all across the country?
Everywhere.
Really?
Whenever there was a job, I would apply. There was a website at the time called Jock's Journal, which is a radio. It's not the biggest one anymore. They might get offended me saying that. But, there's things like Radio Info and Radio Today. But at the time, Jock's Journal was all I knew. And so whenever a job came up, which was not much, there was a lot of people trying to get into radio at that time. So really, you had to go and do your time in the rural areas in regional stations before you could get a cap city. I thought I was ready for Sydney.
It's sort of like when you train to be a police officer or a school teacher and you get stationed out in a place that's not terribly appealing to get your cred up.
Yep.
And then you get the better opportunities after that. So if you're willing to go through the hard knocks to begin with, then the other opportunities, in theory, open up afterwards.
Which is great because, one, I got to do my really terrible radio in Alice Springs. Like just bottom of the barrel shit. It was just bad. I've got some of that audio which no one will ever hear, ever. I've got a mate of mine who did the show with me, JR, who was my first co-host. We didn't know each other until he sort of came a couple of months after I arrived in Alice Springs. And we were like, we're going to be best mates. We're going to do a show together. And I've instructed him that when I die, that he just, all those hard drives with all that audio's on, just smash them all. Just get rid of it. It's for me and him to laugh at, not for anyone else to hear. But when you do that regional stuff, you get to make your mistakes. You get to figure out who you are as a person.
Yeah.
I was 17 doing a breakfast radio show. Like I didn't know who I was. I had absolutely no idea. I was just getting on, turning the mics on, playing sound effects, trying to have a laugh.
And the audience would have been a lot more forgiving as well, I'm assuming,
Absolutely.
out there.
Because they had some truly even like worse radio shows that had been there prior. Like people told us that we were great.
Yeah.
So when we got the job at Triple M Adelaide, which is a big jump.
Yeah.
So JR and I were doing a breakfast show in Alice Springs. We couldn't wait to leave because it was just like, what is this place? And, the people in that station were so great to us, but generally the town is just too small.
Yeah.
And we were young and had stars in our eyes and we wanted to make it to the top. And when we got offered a job by Craig Bruce, who ended up being the head of the network, he offered us a job to do nights there.
Right.
I honestly thought, this is it. This is it. I've made it.
And how old were you then?
I was just about to turn 18. I know.
Not bad. Not bad.
I know. By the time we got to Adelaide, I was 18 and it was just the best year of my life at that radio station. The best.
So turning 18 and relocating to Adelaide, so you would have had a bit of Hindley Street action over that time?
Yeah, mate.
Yeah.
There was a place called Church the Nightclub, which was a big one. There was a place called Red Square. It's called Red Square at the time, and that was pretty rough. Church was also very rough. And I'm trying to think of some other places. Oh, God, what was that one that was a little bit out of town? Oh, God. There was also plenty of great bars. And I think there is still great bars in Adelaide, right?
It's actually really, really good. But the problem with Adelaide is that they haven't, well, it's good and bad. They don't have those strict lockout curfews that a number of the other capital cities have. So we've always found, like, we play shows there. It's usually on Hindley Street or North Terrace, and we would stay at a hotel in that area. And then the next morning, we would either go and play another show in Adelaide or in that area, or we would sometimes go up to Broken Hill and drive up that way. So we'd pick up a hire van the next morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, and these pubs and clubs are still booming. There's chicks that are passed out on the side of the road. There's people like smashing bottles and going nuts, and it's like, hang on. But there's elderly people walking past with their groceries trying to dodge the drunks. And there's just, some of these pubs were 24 hours. It's incredible. And I don't know whether they've tightened it a bit now, but it was just mayhem. It was like a country town, like some of those country towns you go to where it's nice and quiet in the middle of the day, and then at night it's just mayhem. The medium strips is filled with drunks, there's goon bags everywhere, and just people are punching on and going nuts, and you just think, where am I? This is World War III. It's incredible.
It's a wonder. It was like Adelaide is one of those places, just like Canberra, you have this misconception of it, you move there and you go, fuck, I love this place. It was just so wonderful. There was also in North Adelaide, there was this bakery. Remind me of what its name is. And it was like the place that we would stop at after going to the pub, and it was open all the time.
Yeah, awesome.
Was it the O'Connell Street Bakery?
Not sure. Not sure. Yeah,
I think it was called O'Connell Street. Oh God, it was just wonderful. What a great place.
It's picking up a lot more now, so it's a lot more sort of metropolitan, and it's like Brisbane's done that in the last 10 years, and its standards have risen a bit, and Adelaide's sort of following suit now, and it's becoming a bit of a hot spot for people, which you'd never think would be the case, but a lot of people are starting to buy up and move to Adelaide, so it's not a bad place. I don't mind it. It's cool. But
I loved my time.
For an 18-year-old, that's pretty good.
That was great. Like we had this townhouse that we lived in with a bank manager of all. Her name was Anna Quigley. She was wonderful. And our apartment, like our townhouse block, was called Killycoats. We would have ridiculous parties there. Everyone would crash on our lounge. It was a 3-minute walk or like a 1.5-minute run in thongs if you were running late for your weekend shift to Triple M.
Oh, perfect.
And it was just the best.
That's good.
Such a great time.
So just going back a bit, because you mentioned about doing the demos when you're in Sydney.
Yep. So 2 things. When you're demoing for these types of jobs, what does a demo look like? Or what's it sound like? What are you actually recording? Depending what job you're going for. Now I have a back catalogue of years of gear.
Back catalogue, I love that.
You know what I mean? Like you have this skits that you've done or parody songs that you've done
Yep.
or all this stuff that you've created that you're proud of,
Yep.
that you can show program directors. It's not always appropriate for whatever job you're going for. At that time, I was, talking off the back of songs, back announcing, going, that's, what was I talking? Oh, that's Genie in a Bottle. Coming up next, Hit Me Baby One More Time. Playing all the hits. That made me sound more gay than I am. Sorry, everybody. Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears. So it was more of a that was, this is, and just trying to sound up.
Yeah.
Just trying to sound like you're on the radio. And I was doing it from my bedroom.
And would you just do small 10-second, 30-second clips, or were they sort of a few minutes in length? Or
I would make like a 2.5-minute demo. I heard or read somewhere that 2.5 minutes was the thing.
Is the sweet spot.
So I thought that this is it. If I make sure it's 2.5 minutes, bang on. None of that was interesting. I had no callers because there was no way I could use callers or record them.
Yep.
I didn't have that capability at that time. Unless I put a really great phone effect on that Cool Edit had. Oh, I should have done that. Missed opportunity. What a rookie.
Who knows where your career would have progressed if
I
you
know.
had that,
I could have gotten that Sydney job. So I heard that it was 2.5 minutes, so I made just a small little compilation. And at that time, I had to send out discs. Like I had a CD burner.
Yep.
A lot of people were still sending out tapes. I was ahead of the curve. I was sending out discs, and it cost me a fortune. And off the back of that, a guy called Gavin Flanagan, who was my first program director, called me up. He was from Newcastle. I was born in Newcastle. We had a chat about the Knights, who I followed at the time, don't anymore. And he was like, do you want a job? And I went, yes. And I remember telling my mum, and mum thinking I was just taking the piss. Mum just thought, you are not moving to Alice Springs. My first night in Alice Springs, I cried.
So did you go by yourself?
All by myself. Oh, no, that's a lie. I had my dog Ted. My dog Ted came with me.
Oh, there you go. So,
so we were thick as thieves.
Far out.
He flew everywhere with me for a few years. And so I arrived, apart from the program director who picked me up from the station and did a town tour, which took all of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we ended up at the Alice Springs Shopping Centre having a cheeky little lunch. That was it. And I was just so sad.
Yeah.
I was so sad when I got there. And I lived at the radio station.
Wow. Far from home.
So far.
What a remote place. And being 17.
Yeah.
Phew,
and I was instantly
massive.
Homesick.
Yeah.
It normally, it should take a couple of, weeks for it to kick in.
Yeah.
I was instantly homesick.
See, Mum must have been a bit of a champ just to let you go.
My mum is one of the most forgiving humans. My mum's wonderful. She's one of those parents that always said to me, if you want to do this, you do it. But make sure you fucking do it.
Yeah.
Don't half-ass it.
Yeah.
If you're going to do this, I trust in you. I believe that you can.
Yeah.
She had full faith, unlike other sort of people in my family who are like, you're insane. You're never going to get a job in radio. Mum was like, do it. Just do it. She was the same way with my brother and sister. If you want to do this, you just do it. Don't half-ass it, though. Because if you fail, I'm not helping you.
Yeah.
It's all on you.
Yeah.
And I think with that behind you, you know that your mum's got faith in you, but you also know if you fuck it up, it's on you.
Yeah. I think it's good.
Which is great.
Bit of healthy pressure.
Yeah. I left on her birthday, though. She cried.
Oh, that probably wouldn't really help.
I was crying on the plane. Because I knew Mum was crying. My sister was crying, but she was much younger then, so she didn't even know why she was upset. And the dog was already drugged out under the plane, so he was having a great time. And and then when I was flying over, I was sitting next to a guy and I was like, oh, look, there's a shed. We must be getting close. And he went, no, that's the airport.
Wow.
It became all too real then.
That'd be a shock to the system.
It was, and it was hot. And it was a dry heat.
Yeah.
Which, being a coast boy, I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
And it was like it was in you. It just drained everything out of you. It was so different. And then it'd get down to like -4 overnight. So to go from super hot days to super cold nights.
Just one extreme to the other.
Yeah. It was
incredible.
A weird place. And then it'd just surprise you and you'd look outside and you go, shit, that is so beautiful. Where am I? It's just a beautiful place that I will never, ever go back to. I've made a pact.
Oh, I've only got one memory of Alice Springs, and I think I was a child, and I just remember a beer bottle being smashed, and that's That's about as
Tuesday night.
That's about it. Yeah,
that's what happens all the time. It is a rough place.
Yeah.
It is Alice Springs is a place that you go because you're a murderer or or you're just hiding from life. It's full of just random people. And you're like, where are you from? And they're like, oh, I'm from Cairns. And it's like, why are you here? And it's like, oh, don't ask me that.
You don't want to know.
Yeah.
Were you doing breakfast radio there as well? Or was it just a different?
I was hired for days. Within 2 months, my boss put me on breakfast.
Yep. Okay. Were you doing a lot of local profiles? Were you talking to a lot of locals through radio at all?
Yeah. We did phoners, and radio was big there because really there was not a lot of other entertainment, and our show was popular. We were called The Morning After. Oh God, Friday wind up, Morning After. It's a pattern of bad names here. And JR and I, we were like mini celebrities. It's like being a big fish in a very small pond.
Yeah.
We'd get free drinks.
Nice. That's what you want.
Yeah, all the time. I was underage. And we just you lived really well. The station paid me nothing, like 16 grand a year. So the freebies just made up for the rest of the pay packet that I didn't get.
Wow. It's incredible. So, all right. So after Adelaide, so you're there for a year.
Yep.
You're back over to the Eastern Coast?
Well, we got... Triple M was going through a really weird phase. When we got there, Triple M was just there to cock block Nova that was going in.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So Triple M was then sort of bastardized to be a rock dance format.
Okay.
And they employed all these young shows and announcers like us. And we thought this is the dream. This is what the rest of the Triple M's were going to do.
Yeah.
No, the network knew that they were just doing that as a 12-month thing to block Nova.
Right.
They used all the Nova imaging that Sydney and Melbourne had done. And Sydney and Melbourne had hurt the company Austereo at the time.
Yep.
And that wasn't going to happen in Adelaide. So our job was to just cock block Nova. I didn't know that at the time. We were just having fun. And we did it successfully. Nova launched and their first survey wasn't great. And then after 12 months of, us damaging Nova's ratings, they turned Triple M back to what it was, known for, being footy and rock, and all about blokes. And and we got given options, which was sort of work weekends at SAFM, which was the sister station. But we were still under contract, so they wouldn't let us go to Nova, even though Nova were interested. We couldn't go anywhere else. There was no other jobs in the network. So JR and I split up and I ended up going to the Gold Coast.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you started that job in Adelaide, you didn't know that you were going to be there for 12 months.
No, we had a 2-year deal.
2 year, okay.
We had a 2-year deal. I thought it was going to be just like my stepping stone to Sydney.
Yep.
That was next. I had this naive outlook on everything, which was just like, yeah, I'm the best at this. So why wouldn't I just go from Adelaide to Sydney? That's what everyone else has done. And we got to meet some great people in Adelaide, like Higo, Dave Higgins, which and Jamie Chowks, who was the music director, and Kate Mack and Sam Mack, who's now the weatherman for Sunrise. And Chris Page, who works on Triple M in Sydney. So we got to meet some really great people at the start of their careers as well.
Yeah.
But our career wasn't. That was a big sort of step back for us. We got royally shafted.
You probably would have learned quite a bit going through that experience, though.
Absolutely. There was a sales rep in Alice Springs called Adrian Renzi, and he was a loose unit, but a lovely guy, and gave us great advice. And he gave JR and I our best bit of advice ever, which was, boys, everyone's a cunt. No exceptions. I really wish I sort of listened to that, because going into Triple M and Austereo, they were molding us to be what radio was at that time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And we didn't fit that mold, really. We were sort of taking the piss. We were super loose.
Yeah.
And we were young. And I thought I was the king because I was a wanker. So I didn't really listen to bosses or anything like that. So
you're still doing your radio voice then as well?
Yeah, I had a terrible voice. I had this idea of what radio was meant to sound like, and I can't even do it now. It was that bad.
Yeah.
And I remember my program director, Dave Cameron, going, "Why are you doing that?" And I went, that's just it. And I couldn't stop it because I would get on air and and this voice would just come out.
You've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I just thought. I thought that's what you had to do. As soon as I opened the mics, boom.
Yeah.
This awful, hey, thing would come out. It's just, what are you doing, mate? You know, now when I listen back to it, I could not be more embarrassed. But these are the things you just don't know when you're that young.
Well, you got to learn. You got to trial and error.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I shook that voice until I got to CFM on the Central Coast when I was about 19. I started to shake that.
19.
Yeah.
All those years of experience under your belt.
Mate, felt like a long time.
When, along this whole path, when did the voice work start kicking in?
It was, I always loved TV voiceover guys.
Yep.
That was my second big sort of passion. Again, didn't know it was a job.
Yeah, okay.
Why would it be a job? Why would you get paid to do that? It's just someone at the television station who comes in, they've gone, you've got a good voice. No, it was a job. Like,
yeah,
it was a big job now that I know everything about it. But I started doing voiceovers at CFM on the Central Coast because everybody chip in, like all radio stations. Everybody's a voiceover artist because the radio station doesn't want to pay external ones.
Yep.
So my first I did a few voiceovers in Alice Springs, but again, wasn't really good. And I did stuff at Triple M, but the producers didn't really use me because I wasn't very good. And then when I got to CFM, there was a production manager there called Dave Horsepool, and he spent a lot of time with me just going, no, mate, don't do that. And I got to do the cool young reads because I was a cool young voice.
Okay, yeah,
so there was a nightclub and it was called Woodport, and I'd go, come to Woody's. And I'd do this cool voice like Sam Johnson. And that's really where that began.
Wow. So obviously Channel 10 is probably the big one.
Yeah.
But
that and Go.
And Go, yeah.
Yeah.
But you were doing stuff for, I was doing stalking on LinkedIn, of course, as you do. But you did something for Disney as well, Disney Channel?
Yeah, I did. I still do Disney randomly. You just get the call up every now and then and someone has heard your voice. And I've got an agent, which is a bit wanky. But yeah, so they just call your agent and they go, oh, we heard this guy on this and we want to use him. Right.
So what's the process if you get an offer to do one? Do you have your own home studio that you'll do the recordings, or do you go somewhere?
I have a full home studio.
Yep.
So now that I'm based in Canberra, that's where all of my stuff comes from. There's no sort of driving to Sydney or Melbourne to do things. I link up. Look, if it's really important and they want to do ISDN, I'll do it here from the station. Otherwise, Source Connect is the best thing that's ever happened to the world.
Okay.
It's wonderful.
Yep.
If you've never heard of it, Google it. I hope I get free Source Connect now after saying that. It really is wonderful. But yeah, so I just record for all my clients. I got a booth shipped over from the United States, which is fully portable, from a company called Whisper Room. And, I just spent a lot of money setting up my studio and went, right, that's it.
So do they give you scripting as to what they want?
Yeah, they give direction.
And then do you give them a number of variations of so they can pick and choose what they want?
Depends who it is.
Yeah,
After a while, you get to know what the producer likes and what the feel of the station is.
Yeah, sure.
Or whatever you're working for. Like Disney, I know it's up and it's fun.
Yeah.
And if it's an action movie, it's got to be up, but put a bit of growl behind your voice.
Yeah, okay.
So it just depends what it is. Like, it takes a while to, like at Channel 10, it took me a couple of months to sort of fit into what, Claudio, the creative director at the time, wanted. And then after that, you sort of know where you're meant to sit.
Were you doing, from a Channel 10 perspective, were you doing the majority of their main shows?
What's called top tier shows.
Okay.
So when I first started, there was another voice there called Paul Pidioni, who's now at 9.
Okay.
And I was originally just there to do a couple of days a week when I first started, because I just left radio and I was doing Foxtel stuff for 111 and a few other radio things, but not on a show. I was just sort of freelance voicing. And weirdly enough, I was at Channel 7 filling in. And then Channel 10 called and said, oh, do you want to fill in? And I was like, yeah, cool. I'm just about to finish up here at 7. And then they said, do you want to stay after my little fill-in role, which was great. I did 3 days a week and I was doing just some little shitty shows at the start. And then I got put onto the big shows, which are the ones that I used to yell at the viewers about, like MasterChef or Bachelor. What else did we have at the time? Survivor was one of the last ones that I did. Look, you do anything and everything that's asked of you, from this program brought to you by Holden. to 10 Eyewitness News, first at 5, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
you do everything and anything, but your main job is to flog the big shows.
Yeah, right. Did you get an opportunity? So when you were starting to do the voice work at on the Central Coast,
Yep.
and everybody in the team was taking turns.
Yep.
Was it around that time that you knew that there was opportunities for you to do some of that work?
Well, I actually met one of the voices of Channel 9 at the time called Bob Peters.
Okay.
And he used to do casual shifts and some voiceover work on the Central Coast. And
Oh,
he still
right.
does.
Okay.
He still does. He's just a freaking legend. And he was at 9 and then he was at 10. He was at 10 when I was like 20. And I just thought, this is the coolest thing ever. I will never be able to meet another voiceover man.
Yeah.
And I also met Paul Pidioni at that same time too, who was another voice of 10, all from the Central Coast. I'm not saying that's where all the good voiceover artists are, but it's true. And yeah, I got to know that it was a job, and they lived pretty good lives off it by the looks of it. And I didn't really know how much it was until I did my first, because I didn't have an agent when I first started.
Yeah, okay.
And I'd left radio. I was in Victoria, in Gippsland, doing a radio show with JR again. And after a year of that, I was like, I'm done with radio. I'm pretty sort of desensitized and jaded with it all. I'm going to be a TV voiceover man.
Wow.
Then I made up a few demos, again, with my limited production skills and all that, and sent them out. And I got an audition at Channel 7.
Yeah, cool. All right.
And they were launching a show called Make Me a Supermodel, which failed. And I auditioned. And I remember being in there the first time, because what happens when you voice promos is you voice to the picture. So they build the promo, unlike radio where you voice everything cold.
Yep.
And they might go, oh, this is the music that we're going to put behind you just to give a feel, but you voice everything sort of without anything behind you. With television, it's all there.
Right.
So they build the base promo, you kind of have basic graphics and all the cuts, and then they have the show, bits from the show, which we call SOTs, in between, which you've got to read around.
Oh, right.
Because your voice has got to sit in the promo.
In it, yeah.
You can't sit above it or get buried by it. It's got to be the same sort of vibe as the promo. So you've got to match it. And I had no idea that that's what happened.
So it's almost like your accents and where the dynamics of what you're saying have got to fit in with the visuals.
Yep, your cadence,
Yep.
Your resonance, how dramatic it is, how light it is. It all is meant to match
It
the
can
promo.
get quite complex, I would assume.
Super complex. It's a big business. Like at Channel 10, there was never a week where the creative director wasn't going, oh, you've done this wrong.
Really? Wow.
We changed things again and again and again and again. And wording, like I'd get called back or do stuff from home studio in the afternoon because they'd go, oh, we just don't like the word biggest here, so let's change it to greatest because that sounds better. Or we've had testing that biggest doesn't work anymore from an audience, perception. So we're just gonna change it to greatest. They do that stuff all the time.
Wow. Well, did you get any training along the way, or did you go and try and upskill yourself, or you just
I
dove in
learn.
and
like anything
learn
else
on the
that I've
job?
done in my life, I listen to all the voices that are currently there. I try and do what they can, but in my voice.
Yeah.
Which is, if anyone is thinking of becoming a voiceover artist, use your voice. Don't try and be anyone else.
Yeah.
But just see how you can get the same vibe that they're going for in your tone.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you'll kill yourself. Really. It's a lot of work.
It's incredible. I think I'm one of those ignorant people, and it's probably like most of the general public, where you sort of think, oh yeah, like you're just talking.
It's just talking.
You're just saying
Just
what
say
it
a
is,
couple of
and
words,
there's probably a bit of a script in front of you. You just read off it.
No,
But there's a lot more to it.
It's a whole art. Like the best promo producers I ever met in my life work at Channel 10. They are, and I feel so bad for them because of where the company is right now. But they are some of the smartest and gifted people I've ever met, and hardworking, because there's less staff in 10 than the other two big ones.
Yeah.
And they pump out these quality promos that just look amazing.
Yeah.
And that all comes down to them. And they sit in the room with me when I'm voicing. They're like, no, I want it more like this.
Yeah. So they're sort of guiding you through with whatever they've got in mind, their expectations.
Towards the end, it was a group effort. Producers would go to me, what do you think this should sound like?
Yep.
And we do a couple of versions, and we go, no, I agree. It should be a bit more dramatic or a bit lower and flatter here. And it's just a bit of a back and forth thing.
It's cool. Is working in radio, and not to know figures, but what's more lucrative? Is it doing the voice work, depending on who you're doing it for?
Yeah, like working for I Okay, so I'll give you the TV rate.
Okay.
So the flat, and this is not what I got at Channel 10. Once you're contracted, it's a bit different. But,
Right, okay.
but a freelance rate for television promos is $500 an hour.
Wow, not bad.
It is a lot of money.
It's a little bit above minimum wage.
I remember at Channel 7, and I contacted the promos coordinator, and I'd never put in an invoice before, like for them to pay. And I said, look, I've done a week's worth of sessions. Like, I just don't know what like, how do I bill and what should I bill? And she was like, yeah, cool. So it's just $500 an hour. So you've done 2 hours every day. So, just put all that down and send it to us.
Ka-ching.
And I'm terrible at math. So at the time I was just like, that's a lot of 500s. That's a lot of money. And then I put the invoice in and they paid really quickly, like within a couple of days. And I just thought to myself, I'm the richest man alive. But yeah, voiceovers, I think it's different now because it's a dying sort of art.
Yeah, okay.
And there's a lot of companies now called voice farms that do super cheap voiceovers.
Right, okay.
Really cheap, where the voiceover artist ends up getting paid $30 or sometimes $10 for a 30-second read.
Wow.
Which is insane. I agree there needs to be some type of happy medium between $500 and $30 because $500 is excessive. But when you get a big voice, and I mean like the Matt Wheels, the Nick Mackay's, the Paul Pidionis, when you get a voice like that, that's just iconic and the skill level behind it, like they deserve that money.
It gives, especially if, a channel or station or whatever is trying to push a product or a service or anything, they need that legitimate aspect to it. Yeah. And the voice can just add so much weight to the presentation of whatever it is. It's a way to convince the public, whoever's digesting that information, to go, this is validated.
It's believability.
Yeah.
Like if, towards my end, maybe I wasn't as keen about MasterChef promos, but at the start, there was no way that you would have ever thought that I never really watched MasterChef.
Yeah.
Like it sounded like I was in it. And my job was to convince you that this would be the biggest episode ever. You know what I mean? Like, so that was my job to sell that to you. And if I didn't believe it, and make it sound like I believed it, then you wouldn't either.
Wow. Okay. Speaking of MasterChef, so I was doing some more stalking on your YouTube channel.
Oh, fuck, I know where this is going. This is the Julie Goodwin thing, right?
It is.
Okay.
It is. So I'm going to put the video on the show notes for this episode so people can check it out.
Yeah.
Because I was quite surprised. I thought it would have a few more views than what it does.
Well, the original one got taken down.
Oh, right.
The original one got taken down.
What, for copyright or?
No,
whatever?
it was the radio station, and when we left, they took the original one down, and then I put a copy of it up.
Okay.
On my YouTube channel, but the original one wasn't on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
So I think it last time I saw it, it had about 20,000 views.
Okay.
Which is not a lot. Yeah, I don't even know what that one's up to that's online now.
Oh,
not many.
Maybe half.
Yeah, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, if we're lucky.
Yeah.
Look, at the time when we were doing radio, viral video wasn't a thing. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't, stations didn't put any effort into it. I used all my own camera and we hired lights, and I got a mate of mine who was a DP to film it. I got Julie Goodwin to come and sing it, who was the winner of the first MasterChef, if you don't know. And she was from the Central Coast, and I remember doing the show and saying to Julie, I do a few songs. I know that you fancy yourself a bit of a singer. We should do a song together. Thinking full well she'd tell me to go fuck myself. And she said on air, no, absolutely, let's do it. Again, I thought, you're just being polite. It's on the radio. Yeah. And then I got an email from her a couple of weeks later going, when are we doing this song? And I went, holy shit, now I need to write something. And we sat down and I said, look, here's some I want to do a daggy sort of 80s thing with double denim and bad hair and a lot of, push it out, pull it in moves. And she said, okay, cool. And I said, I love this song from Heart. All I want to do is make love to you. And I said, can we turn it into Crockenbush? And she was like, leave it with me. And she wrote a bunch of lyrics.
She wrote it?
She wrote a bunch of lyrics, and then I changed some things, and I come up with the, chorus. All I want to do is make Crockenbush, and because I just had that in my head.
Yeah, cool.
And then she just made it so amazing and sent it back to me, and I went, this is a winner, Jules. We're on. We recorded it one very long day at her house and at a school on a stage. We'd asked a school if we could borrow their stage, and we had little school kids watching us do it in the playground. Yeah, it was great. It's highly embarrassing, but it was one of those first things where, like, you know, it was on the Today Show. It was on the morning show at the time, and it was on the Channel 7 one as well. And it was just a bit sort of crazy. It was that first sort of taste for me to go, oh, videos are a bit of a thing.
Well, the thumbnail when you're scrolling through your channel is just a picture of you with those glasses on with the denim jacket.
The Top Gun aviators.
And I couldn't quite work out what it was, but I thought, okay, this looks like it's going to be pretty entertaining. Yeah. And I wasn't disappointed.
No.
It was really good.
It's long though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you watch the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
It's long. It's a long song.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I should have just edited the song down, and because the whole premise was it was about Manny's birthday, and I was meant to get her like this croquembouche or make her one, and then I fucked it up, and Julie was there to help me as my sort of fairy godmother cook thing, and yeah. I edited that. I put that all together. It was the first sort of real big video editing thing that I'd ever done.
Pretty good.
I was proud of it at the time.
Well, I'm going to give it a resurgence.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, put it back out there.
Double those views for me.
That'd be something for your portfolio. I'm sure you just refer to that when you're pitching for...
the motherfuckers here, when they did a press release here at Mix for my job, they sent the link out to that video.
Oh, right.
For all the media to watch before I went and did interviews with all the papers, and it's like...
This is the guy.
Yeah, this is the guy. Canberra, he thinks he's funny. Have a look. Don't send that out.
Divide the community immediately.
I know, exactly, yeah. What is this guy doing?
Your past coming back to haunt you.
It always does.
Yeah. Oh, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So at that time, you're at CFM?
Yep.
And you were there for a while with Mandy?
No, I was at CFM first just as a solo jock, and I was music director there. Then JR and I was there for 2 years.
Yep.
JR and I sort of hooked back up together, and we went to Gippsland, did a year of breakfast, got out of that, started doing some voicing stuff, was at Channel 7 for about a year, just under. And then I auditioned for Channel 9 for a channel that they were launching called Go.
Yes, yep.
And I was a launch voice for Go. That was, again, one of the most exciting times. I was the main channel voice of this digital channel. And it was going to be like the first really cool digital channel.
Yep.
And everyone loved it. It was, that was like the height of my success at that. Like, really, I was just like, this is it. Again, one of those I've made it moments. I was there for 2 years, and then I got offered... actually, while I was still at Go, about a year and a half in, I got offered to do a fill-in job with a lady called Mandy at Star 104.5 on the Central Coast. So the competitor to see. And I was like, yeah, cool, I'll do a fill-in while they were waiting for this other team that they'd signed to get out of their non-compete. And then Mandy and I became a bit of a thing, and they kept us, which was crazy.
And then... was it only after that ended that you both started doing the podcast? Well,
I left. I left for a couple of reasons. I had a tumor behind my left eye, which I found my eye got really puffy, and we didn't know what it was. And I went to doctors and blah blah blah, and they found out there was this sort of tumor behind my eye, which was ridiculous.
Just to mix things up and make
just a bit of fun. Bit of fun. And it looked like I'd been punched in the face. My eye was sort of being pushed out by it. And so after 2 years, I had to go and sort that out. And I couldn't do both. I couldn't do breakfast and not properly.
Yeah.
And they sort of said to me, look, just take 6 months off and come back. And I went, oh, nah, I'm just going to go. And I knew I could do voicing and it not be as stressful, and I could just do it freelance and get this shit sorted out. So that's when I went back into voicing and ended up doing some fill-in stuff everywhere, and then ended up at Channel 10 for 4.5 years.
Wow. Far out.
Yeah, long time.
So, hang on. I'm just still trying to get my head around this tumour thing.
Yeah. So it's still there.
It's still there?
It's still there. It's a lot smaller now.
Yeah.
I went through some treatment, and the doctors... they claim it is a bit of a win. It's still there. So what happened is, this is so boring for everybody, but so just above my optic nerve, there's a big blood vessel. Okay. And my blood vessel fractured, and around it grew a tumor. So it's really a part of the eye functionality.
Right, okay.
So they can't take it out because of where it is. And because it's grown so slowly, my eye's gotten used to it. And if you move the muscles even slightly in the eye, you get double vision because the eyes don't move exactly the same.
Exactly. Yeah, okay.
So they said there was a 2% chance it was really bad, and there was a 98% chance that it was completely fine, non-cancerous.
Well, that's good odds.
Yeah. So can't really biopsy it because of where it is.
Wow.
And it was just sort of, we're going to put you on some treatment and just try and get it down and a bit smaller. And I had to manage my blood pressure. And I was under a lot of stress at the time, which probably didn't help.
Yeah.
So once I removed all that and realized that I don't need to stress as much in life, it's been fine.
Wow. Was there ever a point where there was any risk to your eyesight at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they really wanted to see if it was bad. Because I've got a big family history of cancer.
Okay. So that won't help with the stress levels.
No, both Pops died of cancer. Pop's brothers died of cancer. Mum's had things flare up in her body and removed.
Wow.
Really just riddled with the shit. So they really wanted to biopsy it. But they knew that if they did that and if it burst, I could bleed out, because it's a vascular tumor. So it's a part of the blood vessel itself,
right?
Because it's essentially the reason that the tumor grew was it was attempting to repair, it was attempting to repair itself.
Okay.
And then it just got bigger and bigger and started pushing the eye forward. So they said, look, if we biopsy it, there's a good chance that you could bleed out on the table, or there's an 80% chance of double vision. If we do sort of successfully remove it, there's a good chance that you'll go blind in one eye, but the eyes are connected through the brain. So if one goes down, sometimes both of them go down. So yeah, we just went, okay, is there anything else we can do? It was a super stressful time. It was really stressful, and trying to do breakfast at the same time. But Mandy was great, because we were really good friends by that stage. She was super great. There'd be times where I'd be just breaking down in the studio about it and just going, what the fuck is my life?
Yeah.
And then we'd turn on the mics and have a laugh.
Yeah.
Which was great. The funnest time was between 5:30 and 9 with that crazy bitch. And you know her. She's fucking mental. And, that was the same when we were going through, I say we because I was there, but she was going through her divorce.
Yeah.
And her separation. And, we'd do the same thing. She'd have a cry. We'd turn on the mics and we'd wet ourselves laughing, forget about life for 3.5 minutes.
And what a unique job where you can have that therapy.
Yeah.
By having that conversation backwards and forwards and having that banter, where most jobs you're not talking to people as part of that job description. You might have a chat to someone while you're doing another task, but you have to force yourself to have the banter and have the dialogue back and forth. And
you have to bring things from your life.
Yeah.
So, we didn't openly talk about the tumour because we didn't want, advertisers to think that the station was unstable or anything like that. And also we didn't know what it was at the time. So there was no point talking about it. And I didn't want to bring it up because I didn't want people to go, let's have like a charity fundraising thing for you and all that stuff, which happened towards the end, which I was like, no, I'm fine. Which was lovely of people, but you don't ever want to make the show solely about you. Yeah. The show's about entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you bring pieces of yourself, but it's got to be outward. It can't be just talk about me. Yeah. My favorite stuff is when listeners call in and tell me great stories. That's it. And I think it is a remarkable thing because you're in a padded room with someone for a long period of time. So sure, it's 5:30 to 9, but then you spend so many hours with that person. You might spend until 2:00 that day, meetings, planning the next show, coming up with big giveaways, or, hey, we want to dangle someone upside down from a helicopter. Can we do that? Is that legal? You spend your whole day and then you're getting back to listeners, and then you're making skits or writing parodies, and you're recording stuff for client. Then you're going to meet clients, and then you might go home and have a nap, and you'll get up and you'll host a charity event that night with that person.
Yeah.
So
wow. It's a lot of time.
Yeah, you've got to get them better sometimes than their partners do.
Yeah.
And you're there. I've been lucky. I've never been in a show where I've hated my co-host. I know that happens regularly. I've certainly been lucky. JR, my first co-host, is my best friend.
Yep.
I'm godfather to his son, one of his boys, and, his family is my family.
Yeah.
Mandy's the same. Mandy is a part of my family. She's like the sister. I've already got a sister, but she's the other sister I didn't want. And she's the older one. Just throw that in there. And now with Kristen, I've been so lucky to get along with all of them really well, which is so important. Because if I hated them, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I can't think of another job where it's that intense. where you have to be with somebody for that period of time.
And vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there talking about your life every single day. And generally, it's the stuff about your life that's embarrassing, because that's the stuff that makes it interesting.
Yep.
So you're just opening your heart and your soul every day on the radio and going, hey, people, like it or don't, troll me online later. It's a big thing, and it's exhausting, but it's also the most rewarding thing I think I've ever done. That's hence why I've gone back to it.
It's probably going back to what we were saying earlier about that whole balance of genuine media versus what it used to be in the past, where there's a lot of bullshit, and cutting through it. And half the reason why particular programs are so successful is that when you're listening, you're connecting with that person. You can relate to what they're saying, and that person's being somewhat vulnerable on the air and projecting what they are, their persona. And so people are able to listen and go, oh, absolutely. Like, I understand what that person's saying. It's not just this person with a radio voice who seems so disconnected from the general public. Now it's a case of, oh, it's just like me. The same sort of things.
It's just because when I was younger, radio was like witty one-liners, sound effects, and punchlines.
Very much like American radio.
All I can think of is Family Guy, Dingo and the Baby. And that's kind of what it was. It was wacky and zany, and and I'm on an adult station now, which makes me seem super old. But the best thing about an adult station, and particularly in Canberra, is that we get to talk about real shit. Real shit. I try and make it as light as possible, but it's always going to be real shit. And that goes, we talk about, I broke up with my partner 4 months ago. We've chatted about that since I got here, which is great. We talk about dating on Tinder. These all the things that your audience goes through, it's not all happy families. It's not everyone is in, a husband and wife and a couple of kids, 2.5 kids.
Typical,
it's just not at all. You've got single parent families, you've got people who have decided not have kids, you've got gay couples, and you've got loners like myself. And I'm not that sad, I promise. So look, your audience is varied and vast, but everyone can connect to a part of your personality, hopefully. Because they've all been at that stage at some time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so keep an eye on the time. Or am I? Oh,
an hour. You've got an hour.
That's pretty good.
Okay,
that's pretty good. All right, so before we wrap it up, how long are you here for?
How long am I here in Canberra?
Yeah.
Well, I signed a 2-year deal. I don't know. It could be it.
Just see what happens.
It could be it. I don't know. I certainly didn't have a plan when I came here. The plan was to get back on air and have fun. And then just see what happens.
Just see what happens after that.
Who knows? After I think it's like a 6-month probation, they might tell me to fuck off. I don't think so, but that could happen. You never know with radio, and you've got to be prepared for that. So I don't know. I thoroughly enjoy Canberra. Everyone talks about the cold. But it doesn't really bother me. It's hard to feel in this studio right now. It's super fucking hot.
It is warm.
But it is cold outside today, and I really love the place. So I don't know. This could be it. I'm not sure. I could be here for 10 years.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm an old man now. We've discussed this. See, what happens is when you're young, you move around a lot, and I just don't feel like doing that anymore.
Well, you've done a fair bit, probably more than most people in a line of work anyway.
So, and which was great. And I loved going for a new challenge. And I think I realized at Channel 10, being there for 4.5 years, that I did want to be somewhere stable. And for a long period of time, Channel 10 wasn't stable ever in that 4.5 years. And I realized that I was sick of just doing the 2-year stints at jobs and sort of moving around. So, which was always my choice. Apart from the Triple M one, I always, cut it off and went on board with this, move on, short attention span. But this is a place where I think I could be super happy. And it's a really great company.
Cool.
So I can't really diss them, because everything I've asked for, I said, oh, can you just build me a new studio? And they went, yeah, that's fine. We'll sort that out for you.
It's all right. Lap it up while you can.
Yeah, give me all this money. And they're like, yeah, sure. No, they didn't say yeah to that. They said, no, mate, this is what you'll get paid. Prove yourself. So, and that's all I got to do. I've just got to sit here and prove to Canberra that I'm here to have a good time, and I'm not floating through looking for something else. I'm just looking to have fun.
And as you said earlier, it's about trying to meet the expectations of the area as well. The demographic here is probably very unique compared to other cities.
It super is. It's like 46% government employees.
Yeah.
And not dumb, well, careful what I say here. But I think, look, there are certain areas of where I've done radio where you tailor what you do to that market.
Yes. Yeah.
Not to talk down to people at all, but there are some people who prefer, they prefer the punchlines. They prefer the stupid radio. I'm lucky to be in a very open-minded city with lots of different people, lots of different families in lots of different jobs, and they're very smart. So I get to do stuff that may go over some other markets' heads. Was that diplomatic enough?
I think that's quite good.
I called them dumb at the start. So
you recovered well.
Okay, good.
Oh, well, okay. I think we might wrap it up here.
That's it? You're done with me?
Yeah, I think we're done for now.
Throw me aside.
It's getting warm as well.
It is so hot in here. God. Jeez. Fix the aircon, guys. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that chinwag with Wilko. You can check out everything we spoke about over at the show notes, on the show notes, in the show notes. In is better, isn't it? In the show notes over at andysocial.net. I'll have everything in there that we discussed, all the links, resources, contact info for Wilko if you want to say hi. And that's the same for every single episode I've done of this podcast. I'm a bit consistent. I know. I'm getting good at this. So if you want to check out anything that we've spoken about on the Andy Social podcast, you can go over to andysocial.net and you can find all the episodes and all of those resources and contact information and anything and everything we've spoken about. Hopefully it's all there anyway. So that's it for another week. I'm going to wrap it up right now. Thank you so much for listening. Podcast is going great. I really appreciate everyone jumping on board and listening to it, and all those people that are going back and listening to the podcast in the past. And also a big konnichiwa, ohayo gozaimasu, konbanwa, and domo arigatou gozaimasu to all of my new Japanese listeners. Thank you very much. I don't know where the hell you've all come from, but I am very, very thankful. Domo arigatou gozaimasu. Okay, guys, until next week, take care. Bye-bye.